And to be honest, it has been, if not the best investment I did in my career was to have Sean with me.
Victor's super tall, how's his career going to go? I was actually surprised people saw that as a hindrance, because working with a lot of basketball athletes, being 2 meters tall, that's not necessarily even tall for a basketball athlete. So one of the unique things, going back on those early days on how some people saw limitations where I actually thought they were strengths, and then how could we work around to enhance?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Average Not Average podcast. I'm your host, CK.
And I'm Victor, and today we're joined by someone who has played a huge role in my career and also a great friend of mine, Sean Casey. Sean has spent more than 20 years helping people optimize their health and performance, from everyday individuals all the way to Olympians and elite athletes competing at the very highest level.
Sean is a registered dietitian, physical preparation coach, and proactive health specialist, and someone Victor has known and worked with for multiple years across some of the biggest moments of his career.
That's right. Sean has helped me through many phases of my journey, and today we'll be diving into performance, optimization, recovery, nutrition, injury prevention, long-term health, and what it really takes to be consistent at the highest level and to be able to perform in both sport and in life.
And I think, of course, we're going to hear some funny stories as well. Welcome to the podcast, Sean. I'm really excited for the stories in this one. How are you doing today?
Doing very well, very well. It's an honor to be on, and I look forward to reminiscing about many good times.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I think just very, very quickly, I think for hardcore badminton fans, especially over the last, decade or maybe decade and a half, people will have noticed that you've been around Victor's side during tournaments, during photos, warm-ups, like stuff like that, all the media that comes out from back then. How did you two got together? What kind of stories can you tell? And I hear, Victor, Sean has lived with you for a period of time in Copenhagen as well. How was he as a housemate? This is for Sean, not for you, Victor.
Yeah, maybe I can start just a short, how we met. You could say, like, back in the day, I was trying to educate myself on, especially, all the things Sean knows a lot about. And so I was reading on a blog called Subversity back in the day about, training, nutrition and stuff like that. And through the owner of that blog, I was sent to Sean, and I had a consultation with Sean, and I think I can say that we clicked from the first talk, and it was very, very interesting to me to get someone with Sean's expertise, his eyes on badminton, and me as an athlete, and then we met up as soon as we could. I think it was back in 2014-15 or so. We met up in New York, where my sister was staying. And there's a funny story there when we met for the first time. And before Sean he gets to talk, because he would do a majority of talking, I would just mention this story because it's very, very funny. I was with my sister, and back then I was still pretty, when we booked the hotel, I wasn't as professional as I am now. So I looked at the hotel and I was like, oh, this is like a double room within one room. It's fine, And Sean, he was coming over, and it was the first time I was seeing him. And when we come into the room, literally, it was like a blanket, you sort of which separated the beds. So it was like when he came, it was like, welcome, Sean. You will be sleeping literally 1 meter away from me and my sister. So I think you could say that there was really no way about it other than that we got really good friends very fast.
Steep introduction, huh?
Yeah. It was one of those things that, like you said, it was kind of like if you're in a hospital and it's like a double room, they have the little sheet they pull across. It's one of those that I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? We're either going to be really good friends in about 3 days, or we're never going to talk to each other again, depending on how these days go. But no, it went really well. And, it was interesting because, when first starting off, Adele Musa from Subversity said, hey, there's a badminton player who's interested in working with you. And so we connect on Facebook, and it was just kind of interesting how it built from there with the work that we're doing. And, very quickly I was able to see that Victor's level of focus and discipline, and, it matched how I approach a lot of things I do in life there too. And so I think it just naturally clicked and grew, and we survived New York. So
he kept you really close. It was 1 meter away, right? I mean, Victor, what's your wingspan? Actually, it's more than 1 meter.
It's a lot. It's a lot. No, but I would say that it was like one of those experiences where, obviously Team Denmark, they were doing the best they could and stuff like that. But my dream was, since I was, just starting out, to get my own setup, to get good people who I thought was good for me. Not that they didn't want to do a good job, but one who fit my personality, the way I was working. And I think with Sean, it was just it was just great from the start. And when we did the screening, there was already a lot of things where I was like, okay, I really need to fix this. So that trip was like, we just spent time in the gym and then we went out for some sightseeing and stuff like that. So I think when you're working so close, like Sean and I did, it's very important that you, as friends, and that you as personalities, that you click together. And I think it was just, great and very lucky and fortunate that we met the way we did.
And so just rolling back a little bit, you mentioned screening there. And so obviously at the very, very start, what was your role, Sean? Like, was it more physical preparation coach, or was it just more dietetics a little bit, or a combination of both? And you mentioned screening there, Victor. Like, what was the initial kind of like, I guess it's a calibration or assessment of where the baseline is?
Yeah, it was like a movement assessment is probably a better word, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we first started off, it was doing the nutrition work together. And then it was in New York City when we got together for the first time, where we did more of the physical aspect of things, rewind this again. This is back in 2014, before you had a lot of the video cameras. Now you can do so much more, virtual in terms of watching things, screening, be it Zoom or whatever you're using. But at that time, it was, a much more, and Victor could probably tell you this about myself, is technology is not always my friend. So for me to be like cutting edge in technology in the year 2014 just wasn't going to happen out there. But luckily it worked perfect, where, he was coming over to New York City. We were able to get together on things. And whenever I'm working with someone, I always think about, what are the main pillars that impact performance? What's happening from a food standpoint, the sleep, the stress management, and obviously the physical is a huge aspect of things. And one of the things I found interesting was, because when I should back up a little bit too, when Victor first reached out to me, I had not had much experience at all working with badminton athletes. Here in the United States, it's grown, but, even say badminton's not necessarily, as large of a sport here in the US. That being said, though, I had worked with a lot of basketball athletes, a lot of tennis athletes, swim athletes, like across the board at, professional levels. I've been fortunate to work with some good athletes. And I remember one of the things that Victor mentioned to me, and even too, when I started watching more badminton, because it's like, okay, this isn't a sport I have a lot of experience on. Basically, I jumped on YouTube and just watched hundreds of hours before we even got together in person, not only of him playing, but what are the elite level athletes in his sport doing? And the one thing that, would come up like, oh, Victor's super tall, how's his career going to go? And I remember that being one of our early discussions on the physical side of things. And for me, it was very natural. Like, I was actually surprised people saw that as a hindrance, because working with a lot of basketball athletes, being 2 meters tall, that's not necessarily even tall for a basketball athlete. So I was fortunate to work with taller athletes and just see how they move and what things you have to be aware of when doing assessments, things of that nature. So I think that was, one of the unique things, going back on those early days, on how some people saw limitations where I actually thought they were strengths. And then how could you, some of the limitations of being tall, how could we work around to enhance?
Wow. Okay. And then back then, obviously, you had your own practice, and then through this owner on like the blog online, and then Victor getting in touch through that, and then it's a very small world, then, isn't it? Like in that case, it's just an extremely, extremely small world. Victor, how for your side as well? Like, so once you had the introduction to Sean, how long did it take you to realize that, okay, Sean's the guy for you, and then move on from there?
To be honest, I think after the first consultation, I could feel that, again, we were very similar in the way we approach things. Like, we really want to get into detail, and we wanted to, try to see, I didn't have any problem. Like, we could separate like the personal side of things, and then how do we make me the best athletes possible? And I was so intrigued by that idea, and that Sean had the knowledge in both in the nutrition, which was a big part for me. I've been struggling a lot with trying to find the right way for me, and then of course with the physical training and the physical preparation. So to be honest, I knew from the start that it would be a good fit. And then once I went to New York and we met there, like back then, like financially, I wasn't in a as good as a position. So literally I was investing everything into I could, as soon as I could, in order to get Sean as much with me around as possible. And to be honest, it has been, you know, if not the best investment I did in my career was to have Sean with me. Because not only when we had the training blocks, we managed to do a lot of good stuff, but also when we were on the road and stuff, you know, I think not only from a training perspective, but also just from a mental standpoint, you know, I'm usually staying quite a bit alone. So to have Sean and to share like basically everything, like as a friend as well, was very, you know, very good for my career and my mental well-being as well.
Wow. And then obviously, Sean, for like on our podcast, we often talk about the business side of things, the finance side of things. You were running a business then, like in terms of your consultation, your practice. How easy or how difficult was it for you, from your standpoint, to go, look, I'm gonna like focus all in on Viktor? How did you make that decision? And then also, what was kind of like the mindset going through that process?
One of the things I've always been passionate about, you know, as I'm going through the thought process, was aligning yourself with like-minded people. I think that's really important with anything that you're doing. And so if I see an opportunity with like-minded individuals, you know, I always try to find out what's the solution to make this work. You know, the one thing that was nice is, again, at least there's still internet, so I was still able to do some of the nutrition stuff. I was still able to do enough stuff virtual. And at that time too, it wasn't like I lived with Viktor for 12 months out of the year, you know, especially starting off during that time period. And so I was still able to come back in the U.S. to work with clients during that time period. But again, I very much believe in putting energy with like-minded people to achieve something great. And based off of, you know, working with Viktor and those early things, because like I said, it was kind of like a couple weeks here, a couple weeks there at the very initial start. And I just saw how we clicked, how we gelled. And two, I was go back to like, am I enjoying what I'm doing? You know, you can have the greatest opportunity in the world, but if you're not enjoying what you're doing, it's going to be very short-lived. And it was always fun, you know, working together with Viktor, the team. You know, I was able to meet his family, and it just grew. Like, it was, again, and I think the one thing we did good is we always were able to separate, hey, here's the business relationship, here's the coach-athlete relationship, here's this level of respect. But off the court, we were really, really good friends. And I think that's what made the decision easy. In a way, it's like, okay, once I kind of rearrange a few things, I can still keep a lot of this going at once, but now I can fully pursue this and work towards, you know, whatever would develop in the future, which, you know, turned out to be all right.
Wow. And then how soon from New York were you flying over to Copenhagen and living, Viktor, at the time, your apartment, or at that point in time, no?
Yeah, like obviously we were so much on the road. So as Sean said, it was something where, you know, Sean, he was with me, you know, for a stint like leading up to a bigger tournament. Then we went on a tournament together. Then maybe Sean could go back and stay a few weeks here and there. I can't even. It was pretty soon thereafter that Sean actually was almost full time with me, and those, you know. Yeah, I just see the picture in my living room, like Sean laying basically. That like I was like, it was just so good, because like that was just like we were like on a mission, you know. Yeah. Like Sean laying there, we were shopping together. Like Sean was educating me on like what to eat, when to eat, everything, and we cooked together. Like basically, we just had, you know. It was like a total bro,
two
like
peas in a pod.
setup. Yeah. And there was
any food poisoning stories?
we have some from India, but that's another that's for another that's for another podcast.
You know, it was like they always talk about like in any sort of like upstart business, they always talk about like the people sleeping on the floors like 24/7, just zeroed into like what they're doing, like, you know.
Yeah.
Just like it, but it was like it was a very much like an upstart mentality of like sleep on the floor, we'll figure this out, like great food. Like it was just a blast on things. And I even think, again, going back to just fun dummy stories. Do you remember oh gosh, I don't even have a bottle here. Do you remember the first time, Viktor, you gave me some hair wax to use my hair?
Yeah.
So I'm used to the US where it's a little bit of more of a gel. And so you grab it, you kind of like do like one of these type of things. So Viktor was like, hey, do you want some? We were going up, like, oh, of course I do. And so I grabbed some, I put my fingers, and it's like this wax. So all of a sudden, like, it's like I couldn't get there. And so I have this huge ball here. Viktor's like trying to help me to mess it through. It was it
was like basically everything, you know, going out, you know, dressing, you know, all these kind of thing like style, everything. Like basically, it was like the best from both worlds, and there was just a lot of fun experiences. And we met so many nice people also in Copenhagen. And Sean basically got, he was local, and it was awesome.
I mean, clearly, just seeing you both just reminiscing and thinking about, I mean, just a dozen years ago, right? 2014, 2015, and then like seeing you both just smiling through this process, that reminder that, like you said, it is like a startup where, everybody's just trying to just make it work, like sleeping on the couch, done, sleeping on the floor, done, cooking together, done, like these are like, I mean, goosebumps moments really. And so you can just imagine like the bromance, like you said, that you had, and just fully locked in through that process. And I think that also has to have a lot of trust in what both you guys are doing. Like, Viktor, you're trusting Sean with his expertise, and then Sean trusting you, Viktor, to be able to deliver on the court, to be able to then, go into the next level and so on. So how long were you based in Europe, like from the start to finish? How long was that?
That ended up when Sean was, it was many years we worked together, where it was like, then I moved to Dubai, then Sean was a little bit in Dubai as well. So
quite a few years, huh?
We worked together for many years.
Yeah. So is it like, so you have Rio 100%, which you had a medal there, and then all the way through to Tokyo, and then after Tokyo, it was when you moved to Dubai. And so, so two Olympic cycles minimum. What was the major change, Sean, from your perspective, from not just Viktor's game, but then as a badminton expert now? Like, you've watched thousands upon thousands of hours, and you've been on the tour, and you've seen everything, literally from start to finish, the good, bad, and ugly. What can you give me those, like good, bad, and ugly?
I would say the good of it was seeing how the sport has grown over that time period. I think our first tournament, please correct me if I'm wrong, Viktor, was like, what was your first Super Series in Dubai? What year was that?
That was
2015?
2015, yeah.
2015. So that was the first time that I had ever went to live, badminton tournament there. And it's neat to see the growth of the sport in a way, more people involved, things of that nature. So I would say that was the good, the people involved. I would say, if you want to go in the bad, the ugly aspect of things was one of the changes that was very different for me, coming from a North American sport background, was going to a professional event, like how the setups were, the locker rooms in the US, but, kind of like the athlete areas back. I would say as it relates to badminton, that area, there was a lot of catch up to do in that regards. Like some of the professionalism as it relates to I can't think of the right word right now, but the athlete area, for lack of better words, off.
The players lounge.
Players lounge, yeah, thank you. I was mind blank on there, but like the players lounge area, like that was something that was like different. And just like some of the operations I thought could have been, smoother as it relates to the badminton tournament schedule. But like I said, I know it's cool to see the sport that's growing, seeing people involved with it. I think now you're seeing more people getting into badminton, trying to take a sports science or, holistic approach to, really growth and development, which I think is a good thing. I think there's still areas that can be worked on, but if I had to kind of tear things off, the changes over the years are there. I mean, at the end of the day, I love competition. So just seeing athletes compete is always fun. The neat thing with badminton, this is with any sport they work with, that there's things about the sport that make it truly unique and truly beautiful in that regards. And the one thing that I always will appreciate about badminton is you can have something like an all-out smash where you're just, hitting it hundreds of kilometers per hour, all-out power. And then your next shot is this very delicate net shot, like where you barely tap. So like that always grabbed me. I think the other thing too that I gained a great appreciation for badminton is how much thought goes into it, not only in terms of like a strategy standpoint, in terms of me versus this opponent, but taking into account the environmental conditions that are going on. I remember the first time when Viktor explained to me how he has to play a shot different because of the drift in a stadium. That was mind blowing to me, that on the fly in real time, how they're adjusting their hits relative to what's happening in the stadium. And the next day, if people are walking a different direction, air conditioners on or whatever, it's a totally different, drift that you have to play with.
Yeah, I think fans or viewers from TV really, I think badminton as a sport really struggle to showcase how minute and how challenging it is in terms of, like you said, that that instantaneous change that needs to happen every single shot. I mean, I wish we had opportunity for sometime in the future where, for example, like players like Viktor, we can actually, hear what they are actually trying to do or what they're trying to say live on court. Like imagine if we have a microphone where, like we're listening to what he's or she is doing on court, the minute changes, the tactical strategy, the preparation of each shot whilst it's coming so fast. If there's a way, like shot by shot, that'll be quite cool, because I think in for example like NBA, you always have the play-by-play commentators, right? Like badminton never has the play-by-play because every play or every shot in the rally is connected somehow. But yeah, if there's a way for us to do that in the future, that'd be really cool. But then if we go back a little bit, Sean, to physical preparation. So obviously you've worked incredibly closely with Viktor, and we as fans can notice the change in Viktor's playing style and physicality from, say, the 2016 Olympic period to the 2021 Tokyo Olympic periods. Yeah. And so within that 4, 5, 6 years period, I mean, I think Viktor can start first. What was the first thing or most important thing that you saw? Was it more conditioning, strength building, improvement, or injury prevention? And then obviously Sean can feed into that expert position.
To be honest, I think like the way Sean is working, like focusing on, I was coming from a standpoint where I was like, oh, let's go in the gym and let's just hammer through with the squats, with the deadlifts, and make you as strong as possible. While Sean was like taking a step back and be like, hey, our goal is first and foremost to make sure that you're healthy enough in order to be as good on the court as you possibly can. We want to make you stronger, but first of all, we want to make sure that the movements you're doing, that you're not causing so much harm that you will be injured all the time. So once we fixed that and some of the movement limitations I had, we could really build strength, and we could, go through a lot of cycles where you really could build on the explosiveness and stuff like that. And on the nutrition side of things, we also made a lot of changes where once I got everything into place, then literally I just felt like a completely different person in terms of how I was moving on court. And once you get those limitations fixed, like I wasn't getting as tired. So, it was just everything that came together, not only from a strength perspective, but also from just being able to move freely. And then everything else also becomes easier. Also the, just your ability to have a heart, to get down in your heart rate and stuff like that on court. So I think taking a step back and building up again, that mindset I really, really had to accept, because it was like, I was used to just like lifting a lot of weights and lifting heavy weights, while Sean was focusing so much on the health and movement, and that in the end made me way stronger. Like, funny enough, it's just a different way of thinking, which made a huge difference for me from a performance standpoint.
Yeah. So Sean, I guess that's the holistic approach that you've always been preaching and always been pushing, because I guess everything is linked together, no?
Absolutely. And, whenever, working with Viktor and anyone I always think about, what am I doing today? And this may sound a little bit, on a right field, but I always think about, what am I doing today? How is that going to affect the way they're living 20 years after their career is over? I always want people to be healthy and active, not only during their career, but afterwards as well. And so from there, you just work all the way back and, thinking, what can we do to remove the risk of, injuries at this time? What can we do to make movements more efficient? Because the one thing that I see often is people are working harder, but if they're rehearsing the wrong movement patterns, that's just going to accelerate the risk of injury, and it's going to prevent you it's going to cause early fatigue. So sometimes the best thing is to pull back, the throttle a little bit, make things more efficient, and then you can move faster. There's a popular quote that goes along the lines that I always think about this is, move slow to move smooth to move fast, fast wins. All right. So we start to, we move slow, we move smooth, we can then move fast, and that usually leads to someone winning in, whatever their competition is. So like taking that approach and realizing that, strength and conditioning is not always the number one things that athletes need. It could be the flexibility aspect of things. It could be the nutritional component of things. Viktor mentioned, how to bring the heart rate down. What specific things can you do to lower all these barriers to allow for smoother movements, longer, more successful careers.
Yeah. And then, so I think this is also more for Sean as well. So in the world of sport and also amateur sport, obviously a lot of experts are out there. Like, so there's so many experts. Like if you just run a simple Google, for example, the first thing I Googled when I knew we had this podcast coming up was Sean Casey, and it was not you that popped up. It was the other Sean Casey. And again, like there are a lot of experts out there. What, from an expert's perspective, so for someone like say me, or like an aspiring athlete like say Viktor, say, you know, like when he was so young, if we didn't know better, what would be the red flags to look out for if we're trying to work with someone who is going to hopefully level up our athletic performance, or, you know, like longevity of a sporting career? What do we look for in terms of an expert?
Yeah, whenever I'm looking at an expert, few general things I look at is, you know, what is their background? Have they worked with, you know, high level of whatever area that you're going into? Like, okay, what are the, you know, testimonials? What's the background? Do they have any sort of education in the area? And I don't mean that you necessarily have to have, you know, a PhD in whatever, but I think right now you see a lot of people that are popping up where they have like a weekend certification and using that to kind of justify, I'm an expert because I took, you know, a weekend thing. And I think that's a, you know, harder thing that people realize. And I think the other thing too is whenever you have an initial talk with someone, just understand what their goals are. Like, you know, sometimes I'm talking with people and they try to make it sound like, oh, the number one thing limiting your performance is strength. And I happen to be a strength coach, therefore I'm going to be, you know, and I think there's a level of humbleness that you need to have saying, I don't have all the answers. Here's my thought process. Let's work together and we can see how it goes. I think anytime that you go into a conversation and the person that you're talking to, you know, has all the answers, that to me is a huge red flag, because it's always going to be on an individual basis and how that person responds. And so that's what I look for. I kind of rambled a little bit there, but, you know, three things is one, what's their background? Who have they worked with? What are the feedback testimonials? Two, have they had any sort of education in the area? And three, are they a know-it-all, I can do everything type of expert? That's
actually really, I think, really good advice, isn't it? Like the 3-step verification process, you know, which actually takes, for example, like Viktor, from your perspective, you were at that point in time, like you said earlier on, investing everything that you can and you have at that point in time. In more ways than one, it was also a bet against, you know, you're betting with yourself, and also betting against Sean being able to maximize your potential or increase that range of potential to make sure that you hit. Was there any kind of pressure amongst you two yourselves? Because obviously, I think 2014, 2015, 2016, there was a lot of very, very good results from your end, Viktor. But surely things didn't go well. What happens when things doesn't go well between, say, a coach and an athlete from both your experiences?
I think, you know, for me, like, I knew that, I think we showed pretty early that the way we were working and the way we were doing things, it really worked. When things weren't really going as well as we wanted, in my world, when looking back, it wasn't because that what we're doing wasn't working. It was because I got into, like, I had a really bad asthma at some point. I was coughing a lot. It was causing a lot of back pain and stuff like that. So there was a few unforeseen things. I had a loose body in my ankle, for example, as well. So of course, in a career, it's never just gonna be like this. It's gonna be like this. But if you keep consistent, and the way we were working was like, even though it could be a limitation where, okay, my ankle here, we can't do this. Well, then we do some exercises for the ankle, and then we focus on other things that we can work on where we're not aggravating the ankle. So it wasn't really hard for me that it didn't went well. I never doubted that the things we were doing was the right things. It was simply just, of course, it sucks when you can't do what you want to do. But it's just life as an athlete, and everything you do, I guess, that, you know, it's never just going to be one way up, you know. So pressure, I don't know. Of course there's pressure, but we showed pretty early that we knew what we were doing, and also the coaches and everything. I don't think anybody really doubted what we did, to be honest, because they saw that I was moving better.
No, and to build off there, I think a big thing was, you know, data points. You know, you're talking about like the pressures of everything. And I always think about, you know, emotions can cloud judgment one way or the other, but like when you're able to look at data points, and I felt like we were both good at taking a step back and saying, here's the data points. How do we adjust? As opposed to, throwing a lot of emotion like X, Y, whatever. It's kind of like, here's the data points. Now let's find a solution to move forward on it, and I think that's where it worked out really well on that aspect. And, it's like I said, and two, we had the mutual trust with each other. And I felt too, we were both very like process orientated. So if we believe in the process, we believe we're doing the right things, the outcomes will come however they do.
And talking about data points, what kind of data points were you guys measuring on a day-to-day basis as well as tournaments?
Like for me, it was a lot to do. Like, to be honest, when it was some of the tests that's being done sometimes in professional sport, like running tests and stuff like that, I was never really a fan of that because, like, I'm playing badminton. I'm not training for running a better whatever. Of course, it's good if you can measure something, but for me, the most important data point was actually my own feedback on how I was feeling in training. Sean was still measuring a lot of stuff in terms of back in the day, I had the first, like, the whoop you could get and all this kind of thing, how I was sleeping, when we ate this and when I was eating too little, all this kind of thing. But to be honest, for me, the most important thing was how I was feeling and how I was performing in training, because I've always been very, very honest about it. If there was something where I didn't feel like I was performing well, then I would tell Sean. And if he thought that I was something that I need to do better, then, we were talking about that. So I think the conversation and the daily conversations about how did we feel today and all this kind of conversations, those were very, very important. So constant feedback and conversation about how I was feeling.
Yeah, I think it just kind of just reminds me a little bit. So, Sean, I'm not sure if you're aware. We also had Christian Luque Manjon on the podcast previously, and he's a Spanish. I would say physical preparation expert. He was working with the Chinese national team, and again he was measuring a lot of data points, and like yourselves, like you two, adapting these measurements from bog standards, for example, like bleep tests, running 5K, whatever, or cycling, changing and adapting it to suit badminton athletes as a sport. Are you aware of his work? Have you both? I mean, did you both come across each other?
Yeah, so I've never talked to him. I'm familiar with his work, but I haven't had any direct conversation with him.
Awesome, because I mean, like, I think it would have been an amazing conversations for example, if you both can find a way to actually we can make that introduction, I guess, at some point, because you both have slightly different backgrounds, but then working with the elite champions that you have. So, for example, Sean, you with Case, you with Victor, and then Christian with Zheng Ziwei and also a few others, ended up everybody Olympic champions. So clearly there's not one right way, huh?
And that's the thing, everyone's unique in finding that happy medium to go after. And two, realizing what numbers are noise and just static versus, actionable things to go off of. I think sometimes people can look at so many different data points and it becomes like this paralysis by analysis. Because there's 1,000 different things going on. And as Victor mentioned, one of the big things, every day when I saw him in the morning, first one was like, hey, how did you sleep last night? If he was like, I slept amazing, I feel great. And if there's some sort of random number, it's like, okay, that's going to be taken with a grain of salt. So like just having those consistent things and, like I said, knowing what's important versus what's just noise in the background, because otherwise you start chasing rabbits all over the place as opposed to being focused on, outcomes on the court or whatever it is.
Okay. Wow. And then so you asking him, hey, Victor, how did you sleep? Instead of just being like a polite morning greeting, and it became a data point. It became a data collection process, and you had the ability to filter out what was noise and what was the right answer.
Exactly. So, knowing, what the sleep was like, I had a good idea of what his breakfast was, and then I'd be paying attention. How is he walking as he's walking because we rode in the same vehicle together to the court. And so like, okay, I'm watching his movement patterns walking as he's getting in the vehicle. Thinking about posture. Like I always think, just like automatic in my head when I see someone, I just start going through like the mental checklist of posture. How are people walking? How are they moving? Do they seem upbeat and energy there? So it's like, you have all these, objective data points you can look to, but you're pulling these things in to help shape your plan for what you're going to do training day, not only that day, but over the course of the week. And then, it's like, okay, here's the training load that we had. Here's how Victor is feeling on Monday. what's it looking like on Fridays? Do you feel like you got, hit by a bus, or are we still, trending whatever direction we're trying to trend? And that's not to say that there weren't weeks where, by the end of the week, obviously you'd be smoked because it was really hard training. But the one thing I was put focus on was the goal of any training should not be to make an athlete dead tired. The goal of the training should help that athlete be a better, athlete on there. And so those are all like the things that were going through my mind as it relates to data points on a day-to-day basis. And then you start stacking those week. And then again, seeing how the data points are coming on terms of the court, winning, losing, things of that nature.
Wow. Okay. And then, so obviously you do both still work together now?
We're not working together right now, but I just retired and stuff like that. And maybe if my back, maybe I need Sean to do whatever. He also, actually, Sean, he was also, he also knows how to do like soft tissue work. So when we were going on tour and we were doing like the, the preparation for everything, the matches, we were also doing some soft tissue work in terms of making sure, especially around, my rib cage and everything, because once I was getting very nervous, like I was extremely tight among my rib cage, and my rotation and everything would be very limited. So all these kind of things, like Sean was basically taking care of everything when we were on the road. So yeah, it was great.
Has he ever taken care of you, Sean? it sounds like Sean's always been taking care of Viktor. Has Viktor taken care of Sean?
Listen, I was also taking very good care of Sean. Basically everything which was not related to training. I think we can say.
Very safe. This will give people a good idea, and Viktor, you'll be like, oh yeah, this is totally Sean. So, do you remember, like, I don't know if you were a gamer growing up, but it'd be like, hey, you'd have 100 points, and you can make your own avatar, and you could have like 20 points for, like, I don't know, jumping, 20 points for power, 20, and you can distribute your points to create your own character type deal. Well, I feel like when I was created, there was like 100 different buckets where you could like distribute points, and I had like 100 balls when whoever was creating me was dropping these balls. And I believe like 98 of those balls went into either something human performance related or the ability to talk forever. That meant that there was 98 buckets and they only had 2 points to distribute it. Like, there's a lot of missing buckets in my skill set for life skills.
Like,
Wow.
Just to give you an idea, when Sean came to Denmark for the first time, like, iPhones was there and smartphones was there, but Sean didn't have a smartphone. So just to get in contact with Sean, and it was really you can talk about me, growing into this, like this at the athlete I became, but to see Sean go from not having any idea about technology to actually having an iPhone, it almost brought me as much joy as winning that Olympic medal.
peak growth, right? This is the peak growth that we want.
Yeah, but it was good times.
Yeah, but then also I think also I understand how different the systems are. Say in North America, you come over to Europe, like the voltages are the same, the frequency of the voltages are different. You use miles, they use kilometers. It's completely different. And then obviously touring all around the world, it has to be a shock to the system at some point. But then the ability to adapt from both of you to be able to make it work, and then being able to assess that and cut out the noise whilst you're in new environments consistently, I think that says a lot, from that perspective.
I think for me, when we were working together, like we did, like no matter where we were in the world, like we came to the hotel and then there was just like systems set in place in order to, if we arrived here, okay, then, maybe it was later in the day, okay, we go do some bit of movement, some soft tissue work or something, then we go to bed. It was in the morning, out get sunlight, what to eat, what do we need to shop, like, so basically everything was just automated in terms of like what we needed to do in order to get ready. So it was a lot about getting those systems into play, like what was working for me, and then just making sure we were following those and giving me the best chance to perform, actually.
And I think you hit on a key point there, Viktor, is the importance of just having systems with whatever you're doing. Because then it's like, if you're confident in the system, that just takes so much pressure off the plate, because it's like, been there, done that, been there, done that. And now it's just copy and paste as you're going to all these different locations to, back off on stress. On things of that nature. And the nice thing too was, it wasn't like we got there and was like, now what? Like, type thing. Is also like, okay, we're here. This is the time. Bump, 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 and all the way down through there. And I think you have systems. We had full trust in each other, and we just kept on building accordingly. And again, if something didn't go according to plan, is you go back, okay, just analyze the situation, no different than yourself. I know you have a background as an engineer. CK is like, what went, what did not go well? What are the solutions that we can either avoid this or to work through this or whatever it is? And we just kept on fine tuning over the years.
Yeah. And then so I want to go back like a step or two, actually. So Sean, how did you build your expertise over, your background? Obviously, you have quite a complete set, I guess, in terms of athlete performance execution, like dietetics, you have, what's it called, strength and conditioning, and now also including sports rehab, if obviously you are working on soft tissue as well. Where did all this complete set of skill sets come from?
Where it really came back from was when I originally went to university, I thought I was going to be a physiotherapist, or a physical therapist, as we call them here in North America. I job shadowed with a physical therapist from my freshman, sophomore year at uni. And I realized the only time I enjoyed it was when athletes came in hurt. And all of a sudden, I had this light bulb moment. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm excited because an athlete's hurt. This seems bass backwards, right? And so that was at age 20, and age 20 made 2 goals for myself. I wanted to be the youngest strength conditioning coach in NFL history and attend the Olympics, watch athletes I work with compete. And then you just start thinking about things, and it's like, that's what everyone goes in strength conditioning goes through. So I started thinking, like, what can make myself different and add more skills to my set to better assist those I work with. So that's when I decided to pick up a degree in dietetics, complement the background, the degree in kinesiology with exercise phys. And then I just tried to learn as much as I could. Even today, I'm very different now than what I was a year ago, which was very different than 2 years ago, and so forth. Just take that growth oriented mindset. And the other thing I saw too was sometimes when you have multiple people involved, how do I want to say it so it comes off the right way? Sometimes when you have, like, let's say if you have 20 different people surrounding, an athlete, sometimes if the communication is not good between those people, things get missed, not always intentionally. So I always thought about on my end was, what can I do to add more skills to my skill set? That way it's not like, hey, this person forgot to tell this person who forgot to tell this person, where if I'm helping to manage, or support a lot of those things at once, there's just less dropped balls, if that makes sense. I mean, and obviously you still need a team approach. So hopefully it didn't come off that way, but that was kind of my mindset was, what can I do so it's a holistic package that I can help somebody with as they're pursuing excellence and, whatever their passion is.
So instead of too many cooks ruin the soup, there's a project manager, or there's a key person making sure processes are in place so that people don't drop the ball and are able to kind of feed into the main goal, which is athlete excellence, right? From my perspective.
And I think too, like, I'm just genuinely curious and love learning about different things. And that's one of the things that just popped in my mind. We were talking about red flags earlier. Like, I always think about the people you're around, you start becoming like them, good, bad, or indifferent, right? And so, like, I try to surround myself with individuals who had very growth-oriented mindsets, who are looking at big pictures. And I think a lot of that just rubbed into my own philosophy when helping people, is like different skills coming together to offer the best, support for whoever you're working.
I guess one of the best examples has to be Victor, no? Like, in terms of mindset, driven, and then achieving or maximizing potential, and then achieving excellence.
Absolutely.
That has to be one of the best examples there is. And then, so going back, dietetics. We will have to settle this once and for all, Victor. Avocado in porridge oats. Is that a good deal or a no deal?
Let me be honest. I don't think you find any other person in this world that likes avocado, and peanut butter is top one, but avocados than Sean. And I haven't seen Sean eat avocado. I've seen Sean put many things on oatmeal, but never avocado.
Yeah, it's a new one for me, CK. I've never heard that in my life. Apparently 15 grams of protein per avocado, bro. 15 grams of fiber. 15 grams of fiber.
You're a little bit better than fiber, because I'm like, what protein avocados are you eating, bro?
Fiber. Wrong type of avocados.
They do put protein in a lot of things, but protein avocados I haven't seen yet.
Maybe that's the next one, isn't it? That's a business opportunity for someone.
But that was another thing, when we were working together, like Sean and I were very similar in terms of things. Like, to be honest, when I played, I didn't really care what I ate. I just knew that, okay, I needed this here and I needed this then. So it would be oatmeal, and I would just put like, it didn't really matter what I was on. Like I just needed a lot. I needed a lot of energy, obviously, and it was like eat. Obviously we were trying to eat good food, but it was to make sure that I was covered in terms of the macronutrients and all the, like basically all the nutrition I needed. So it wasn't for the enjoyment. It was basically just how do I perform and how do I make sure that I get everything I need.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And then so for example, like if athletes that's actually listening to this now, and if they want to work with you, Sean, how do they work with you? This is where the time you plug your work.
Okay. So anyone who wants to reach out to me, Performance Journey RX is my brand on it. Things. Again, I'm very much about the journey aspect of things. How do we maximize from time of your youth up to, post career, so you can live the life they want to live even after athletics is over. So like I said, Performance Journey RX, I know there's probably a lot of people aren't familiar with the term RX. RX is actually Latin for recipe. So again, how do you have the right ingredients come together at the right time to maximize performance? Here in North America, it's also abbreviation for prescription. So like I said, anyone can reach out to me at Performance Journey RX. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, my website. I'm not on TikTok yet. I'm still working up on that aspect of things, but
Victor's a pro on TikTok.
Well, I would probably say remain is probably the main reason. I actually don't spend myself so much time on TikTok yet, but yeah, you gotta stay young, So I would love to see you two guys on TikTok doing some little dances here and there.
I'm on TikTok, but they're not doing any dances.
No.
Well, no.
Let's see.
Yeah, and then so just going back again to previously. So when I knew that we had an opportunity to chat on the podcast, all three of us, the first thing I googled was Sean Casey. Obviously, I remembered when you both were touring together, but obviously not having the access to speak to you both in person back then, I knew that okay, Sean is Victor's physical preparation coach, and then also it helps in terms of rehab and also preparation in terms of a diet and so on. But then when I just Google Sean Casey Fitness, it was the influencer Sean Casey Fitness that showed up. The guy is huge, like in online. He has a huge online presence, and so
I'm better looking though.
Yeah. So
just to clearly know, I'm the better looking of the two, Sean.
Well, out of the 100 points, you're quite a few in the looks department. That's actually very true. So how do you then separate yourselves from, for example, like, have you had like potential clients or someone who mistakenly come to you, or him that wants to come to you mistakenly go over to him? Have you both ever spoken to each other, or because there's some overlap in some of the work you do? Some is a very loose term.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting, the overlap. And I just found out about, halfway recently as well. I have not had any direct communication with them, but I think that'd be a fun conversation to connect with. And to date, I haven't had anyone approach me thinking that I was, the Sean Casey, the influencer on that side of things. I think probably some of it's due to being in different worlds. Now, I have had people be like, yeah, I tried to, and this is more recent, someone was like, yeah, I was trying to reach out to you, and I realized I was going to the wrong website originally. So I've had a couple people mention that on things, but
you got to up your game on the SEO
right,
game.
I know we
got to up your searchability. Yeah, you got to up your searchability game. We can help with that actually. But
you're a good man. Good man.
The searchability, because it was quite difficult to find you online. In all honesty, I think like the first page was not coming up much, and then it was after we stumbled across performancerx.com, performancejourneyrx.com, and then that was when we okay, this is the actual Sean that we're looking for, instead of the other Sean Casey.
It's so different because when so for people who remember, where I'm 42 right now, so like, but I remember when I was going through my 20s and 30s, like I was so. And again, I think this is one of the reasons, I really appreciate about Victor. He was so focused on, the badminton, being the best he could in badminton. And Victor, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I always had a very focused approach of what can I do to be the very best coach to the athlete standing on front of me who wants to, Victor's case, he wants to win, the Olympic golds, world champions, all in, And so that honestly was my only focus, like that I put all my energy into. So like, the idea of, hey, create a big social media following, making sure, all these things, like that was on my list of priorities. That was very low in the ball game. Like I cared about what could I do to help this athlete achieve XYZ. And now I'm getting more familiar with like the business side of things and some of the social media. But I think, it's just interesting. I'm glad, that he has a good following. From what I've seen, he does, puts out some good information. So I'm glad, there. But again, I was so focused on what can I do to learn the soft tissue, the nutrition. I do blood work with a lot of clients, all these different things to fully scale. And just like I said, you have that laser focus on achieving whatever that goal is. But like you said, now we can figure out how do we get my social media above.
And then I think Victor, this one's probably fresh information for you. And so whilst we were doing our research, like the team, our team's project manager has actually worked with the psychologist that's actually part of Sean's team now, Mohammed Dean. Really small world. Yeah, so really, really small world. So hopefully one day we can also have a psychologist on the podcast, because we have had a lot of requests come through in terms of mental health management and also mental management during high stress situations. Mainly probably requests coming from parents of young kids who are competing and training as they're growing up at the moment, and then parents are struggling to deal with that kind of stress or wanting to help. I believe it comes from a place of love where they want to help their kids, do that. And I think Victor, your perspective as well as an expert from that side could also help from that side. But then, like very, very small world, like super, super small world that someone knew someone, and then just here we are. I mean, also for another example would be us, wouldn't it? Small world.
Exactly.
And
that's one of the good things with like all this, with social media and everything. Like there is many things that's not so good, obviously, also from a mental, standpoint, but still you can get in contact with so many people, interesting people, and it's easier than ever before. So in terms of sharing information and stuff, if you're open to it, then obviously it's a great tool.
Yeah, 100%. I'm conscious of time, obviously. But then, so one quick one. What are your thoughts, Sean, on wearable tech? So, for example, Victor, you're with Whoop. I had Whoop for 4 years. This is the first week I'm without Whoop. I decided to not renew. And then there's Aura Ring. There's now a Fitbit Air. There's what's it called, Apple Watch. All kinds. What are your thoughts on those, Sean?
I think they definitely have some really nice strengths. Being able to give feedback. I found for a lot of clients, having that feedback from a behavior change standpoint can be really impactful on things. I think some of the data is probably more useful than other as, I look at the research. So sometimes you'll see like, hey, my watch said that I burned 1,000 calories doing whatever. Like I think a lot of the calorie data is off, but things like HRV, trending to, sleep, I think there's a lot of useful data there that you can use to guide decision making. I think you can see trends, how your body's adapting to something, and to make more informed decisions.
Yeah.
So hopefully you're able to see, some of these trends develop early before, so you can see the smoke before there's fire down the road. And then likewise, that's on more the injury side, but you can also use it then to help guide decision making, taking in the feedback of whoever you're working with. So you have the objective data that you can combine with subjective feedback as well to make best informed decisions.
Yeah, for me actually, I know I've been trying all of these kind of gadgets as soon as I could, also the Aura Ring, the Whoop and everything. But actually for me, being the personality I am, I actually took those away quite soon, because for me, if I had a day where, I got so much data, it could be calories, it could be how I slept. Actually, sometimes I would feel like, okay, I'm actually feeling quite good. And then I would be in the red or whatever and stuff like that. And it would really mess with my head, especially during competition. It would really mess with my head. So I'm such a perfectionist that, if the numbers weren't perfect, then it would mess with me, and it would like sometimes hamper my performance and my training. So as much as I think like it's great to do some measurements once in a while, I'm really a bit more old school. It's like, how are we feeling? How are we looking? Like, how are we performing on court? And those are, and that would also, if you're only relying on like the data you get from all these variables, then also you will get a little bit out of sync with your own body, I think. and the ability to really listen to your own body, like how you feel and stuff like that. That's like, it's so important for athletes. And I think that's one of those things that Sean and I were very good at. Like, as Sean said, how did we sleep? How we're moving? Like, how we're feeling? How did I feel doing this exercise? And then your body knows best. Like, that's basically what I'm trying to say.
True. I mean, in the 4 years that I've had Whoop, I've actually never once looked at the number of calories burned metric. I actually, not because I only remembered the calorie stuff because Sean, you raised it just a few minutes ago. The only thing that the stuff that I cared really a lot was sleep. So sleep quality, but then also the behavioral change. That one. I think when I first got Whoop, I realized that every time I had a beer, or every time I had some form of alcohol, sleep quality absolutely tanks. Like HRV would completely plummet, and then it would then ruin the night of sleep. And then you can actually see that data, from the amount of.
Did you try with 2 beers?
Well, I was able to quantify how early I need to have the beers to be able to then have a good night's sleep. But then it did change. It did change how I consumed alcohol, which just literally plummeted completely, zero. And then like it because I never really had to have alcohol to be able to have a good time at dinners or with friends or anything. But if it still doesn't stop me. Say if we go out for a nice dinner, a few beers in or a wine or whatever, that's perfectly fine. But then it literally cut down on, say, like Wednesday evening. Should we have a beer or not? Like in the house or whatever, just watching TV. That just completely stopped straight away. So that behavioral change, which 100% is a very, very positive one. And then like this is the first week, like I said, that, I don't have it with me. And then, like you said, there is some form of reliance sometimes. But then now I'm trying to relearn how to feel the body again, like from that side and learning how to do, okay, if I've trained today, I need more rest this time, and then like food, diet, and stuff like that. So focusing a little bit more on the core stuff, I guess, from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. On there is, if you're using it, look for more of trends as opposed to getting paralysis by it. And that's what I was mentioning earlier, like paralysis analysis, where you just have 1,000 pieces of data. It's like, okay, which one of these are actually relevant? And know how you respond to it, type of deal. I think that those are huge factors.
Yeah.
I was saying now, Sigurd, that we have this information. You should just get dead ass drunk from like in the morning time instead. Just invite your friends over for a morning.
Yeah. So I daytime drinking. we start at 12 p.m. We start at 12 p.m.
It should be a new thing. You should start that. Make it a trend. I will join once.
Yeah, we start drinking at 12. We stop at 6, and then by 10 p.m. you'll be clear. You'll be ready to sleep and good sleep as well. But then one thing I was quite disappointed. It never said that my behavior. If I had avocado, there's a plus 4% recovery.
Oh man, we really got to put your avocado and porridge thing to the test.
Yeah. But actually, one thing that is a red for me is protein shakes. So it said that for me, protein shakes are actually bad. But probably I think the correlation again was because I've always had like hard training sessions, and then I'd have the recovery shake before driving home or whatever. But because it's hard training session, the next day I'm in like deep yellow or red. And hence the trend was always, once you have a protein shake, which is combined with a hard session, you go down. And so they were like, oh yeah, this correlation is, the protein shakes are bad for you. I was like, I'm not sure. But at least, like you said, like trying to find the non-noise from the noise, I guess.
That's where I would probably take the old school approach of like, hey, how do you feel? As opposed to be like, yep, never touching a protein shake.
Continue having protein shakes. Yeah. I mean, but then, Sean, do you have a wearable tech yourself, or you are completely off these?
I do have an Apple Watch. The only thing that I look at, I don't follow like any of the health wearables per se. The only thing I like looking at just number of steps per day. That is honestly I have the most basic Apple Watch possible. Like there's no like fancy gadgets, and a lot of it is I like to be able to read my body, understand my body, and just have that intuitive sense as opposed to being reliant on data. Like that, and I do the steps more because it's just kind of fun to see, what my step total is at the end of the day. But it's not necessarily like where I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to go walk 5,000 steps or whatever. It's just kind of like a fun thing to follow on my end.
Yeah. And then Victor, because obviously you're a big watch guy, and then do you have like two straps? Are you like a two-strapper? You have a Whoop on one and a watch on the other?
No, actually, I'm not using. I just bought a Garmin because I do a little bit of like running sometimes when my back is not too bad, and I do a little bit of biking and stuff like that. So I use the Garmin a little bit more. I think the data from there is quite fun, but I actually don't do any other things. I'm just trying to, again, like Sean, like how do I feel, how do I look, and all this kind of thing. And I'm looking way too much on my phone and everything already. I don't want to be, looking at all these measurements and stuff like that. And I know for sure when I'm with the kids, if there's a bad a bad night, if I had the Whoop on, it would be very red. So I will much rather just live in Fantasyland.
Yeah, just go by feel, like the subjective feeling, right? Like, yeah, if you feel not good enough, a cup of coffee can solve a lot of problems straight away.
A lot of coffee.
A lot of coffee. No, absolutely. Sean, I think just rounding up, do you have any questions for me, for Victor, for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one, I'd be curious on what are you doing today? I'm always interested what people brings enjoyment into their lives beyond just work. Because I know, CK, I can tell you're passionate about, doing the work that you do with the media, the marketing, the podcasting. I know Victor's passionate about a lot of things, but outside of like sport or work, like what is something that you focus on a daily basis that brings a lot of joy into your life or relaxation, kind of like that? Like, I just love X. And why do you love doing that X?
Victor, you want to start first? I need more thinking time.
I was just sitting and hoping that you would answer first, so I had more time. No. To be honest, I think for me, especially here post career, like obviously it's a big change for me. And now where I'm slowly starting to prepare to move, also to get back to Denmark and all this kind. Like there's a lot of things going on right now, and actually I've used music in the past, but I'm really, really listening to a lot of music nowadays. Like I figured out it really, really helps me, relax and depending on which mood I'm in, it's like a very, very strong tool to me, which I think I've underutilized in the past, actually. I've always listened to music when we were on tour, Sean, and, before tournaments and stuff, but never really in my daily life. And I'm really starting to, to dig into that world and figure out how do I use it to whatever kind of mood I'm in. And that's actually quite interesting, and it has a huge impact on my nervous system.
That's very cool.
Wow.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. No, I think from my side, obviously from the illness that I've had fairly recently, again, I think the doctors said it was caused by stress. And I think for me personally, I'm a person that, for example, I really enjoy doing the work that I do. And then because the work is going okay, work is going well, I then push harder. And it's the same for the whole team, like, and like I said, if you're working with people that's like-minded, who are willing to push to the end of the world to get to the results that they want to get. And it's because everybody enjoys it. And so if I see, for example, from our team, Lara pushing, Fee pushing, like I would push even harder. And then so everybody's kind of like impacting each other on a positive note. But then so they often have to remind me and go, look, chill out. Like you have to chill out a little bit. Otherwise you will burn out. Hence, I guess the illness recently was like a little reminder that I needed to take it chill. But one thing that I've really noticed, especially I'd say in the last 2 years, is I like my lawn looking lush, looking perfect. So I never really realized like looking at greenery works.
Yeah, huge.
I grew up in a city. Everywhere is a concrete jungle. I've lived in huge cities a lot of my life, and then now I have my own little patch. And when the grass is like spot on, I feel so good. Like I look out the window, and then sometimes I see the rest of the neighborhood. Some people's grass, like I think that's why they always say, like, when you have grass or a garden, you start comparing people's gardens. Well, his is crap, hers is not good. Oh my God, his is absolutely awesome. Why can't mine be like that? But I realized that if the grass is like trimmed, I look good. I feel very good every morning. Like just open the curtains and go, oh yes.
CK, I think
It's
you should. I think you should dye your hair green, and then every time you go for a haircut.
I mean,
if you're in Asia where there's no greenery, you know, if you just go get a haircut, it would be like mowing the lawn.
I kid you not. I think when my hair is not like it's long, it also annoys the hell out of me, and so I think it comes from there. I think Victor, you are absolutely spot on. You're absolutely spot on. But yeah, like I need it. Like it needs to have sharp corners, and it needs to be level. But it's weird. But I think it's a sign that I'm getting older.
No.
But the green, looking at green.
Definitely.
I like it. Good
Awesome.
stuff.
Yeah, looking at green. I mean, Sean, last one. What about you? One very last one, and then we finish.
The one thing on a daily basis is I love being outside in nature. Like, I love. I don't get quite as on top of the lawn aspect of things by just being outside. I love like just taking walks. You know, I still have where I wake up in the morning, I just go for at least a short walk every day. And I find like it helps me relax, chill out. And for me, it like gives me that sense of enjoyment before I even start the rest of my day.
That's really good. Really good advice, really. No, I think that's it. That's it for us. You know, like, thank you so much for making time, Sean. I realize it's in the middle of your work day, whereas for Victor and myself, it's late in the evening for us. No, thank you so much for jumping on. And yeah, we really appreciate the time that you give us. I'm glad I get to speak to you now after seeing you on TV for, you know, a decade plus ago. And yeah, no, thank you so much. And then Victor, you know, really good to see you back again with us.
Yes.
I don't know if you've noticed it, but the picture behind, is it straight?
I have no idea if it's straight. It's not my.
Maybe it's my OCD that is just like I've been looking at it the whole time. That is it straight or not?
I'm at an apartment hotel, but I will let them know that I will need a discount because the picture isn't straight. No. Sounds good.
And I think on that note, yeah, we'll see you then. Thank you.
Cheers.
Hey, it was
Bye.
a pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. When we booked the hotel, I wasn't as professional as I am now. So I looked at the hotel and it was like, oh, this is like a double room within one room. It's fine, you know. And Sean, he was coming over and it was the first time I was seeing him. And when we come into the room, literally, you know, it was like a blanket, you sort of like which separated the beds.
Kind of like if you're in a hospital and it's like a double room, they have the little sheet they pull across.
So it was like when he came, it was like, welcome, Sean. You will be sleeping literally 1 meter away from me and my sister.
And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? We're either going to be really good friends in about 3 days, or we're never going to talk to each other again, depending on how these days go.